And now some would say, but wait a minute, Mark, you just said that it goes up and goes down. And if it's a roller coaster, well, what if we go in this big track, between now and October, November, then what? Well, yeah, then I actually think we're due for another bear market. Now, interesting, Saylor this week abolished winter. He said winter is not coming back, that, he basically decreed that the 4-year cycle is over. Yeah, he's a smart guy. I'm taking the other side of that. I've been talking about this really since January, and I said it would be unpopular. Everybody wants the 4-year cycle to be eradicated. Everybody wants to believe that the ETFs and the institutional demand have eradicated the, humans are going to human.
Mark Yusko also criticizes the conventional retirement savings plan. He clarifies that although it was initially marketed as an employee benefit, it was actually a means for businesses to lower their own obligations by switching from expensive defined benefits plans to less expensive defined contribution plans. The majority of Americans' retirement savings plans are just insufficiently funded. History has shown that market downturns can wipe out huge chunks of these accounts, often halving balances. Even worse, there are very strict restrictions on what you can hold in pension plans. Many productive assets, including as digital assets, venture capital, and real estate, are illegal to invest in. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and enable post notifications before we delve further. Thank you, and enjoy the video.
So it's kind of those ideas, behind maybe Saylor's, let's call it dream or decree that there is more.
Yeah.
Right?
He's speaking it into existence. And look, to your point, the set of policy and regulatory changes have been, universally positive, but there have been some absent. I mean, I actually, my dad asked me last night. He said we were having dinner, and he said, so when's the reserve going to get passed? I don't think it is actually, and you don't hear Senator Lummis talking about it every day anymore. You don't, it's kind of, and it's kind of weird, right? We got the Genius Act, and we did a great episode on the Genius Act and all of the good things. And, then they put the Clarity Act kind of on hold. And then this other bill is just vanished. I mean, and maybe it's stuck in committee. If you remember the I'm Just a Bill song from Schoolhouse Rock.
How could I not?
I'm stuck in committee. And I don't know, but generally speaking, lots of policy has been positive, and I think that is accretive and turns a headwind into a tailwind. I'm not convinced we're through the then they fight you phase. I think Jamie Dimon's still got a few tricks up his sleeve to try to slow this thing down. But the one thing that did happen this week, you said, it was a good week. It was a great week, particularly because, the executive order. Now, when Trump can't get something through normal channels, he reaches for the executive order pen. And the executive order, it's not as powerful as people think. And there's a lot of, like the first one, when they say, he issued an executive order to establish a reserve. Well, no. He issued an executive order to explore a reserve. He empowered people to explore and created a digital asset stockpile, which just says, well, we already have some, so don't sell it. We'll just call it this. But he didn't establish it. So there are certain things you can and can't do with executive order. But what was announced was that he's going to create an executive order, and that's going to allow crypto and private and some other things, real estate, in 401ks. Now, I actually am not clear whether that can be achieved by executive order or whether it needs congressional action. My gut says it needs congressional action, but we'll see. And generally speaking, I think it's coming. I think they will relax the restrictions. Look, I've said this for years, right? Right now, it's against the law to own real estate, private investments, venture capital, digital assets, commodities in your 401k. And all those things I think are good. So I do think it's coming. Like I said, I don't know for certain whether this executive order can mandate the change. I feel like it needs to be like the Tax Act of 86, which again had nothing to do with taxes. I mean, it had a little to do with taxes, but it was really about converting from defined benefit to defined contribution and the 401k that we know today. And, again, we think it was this great gift to us and portability, but it really was as a way for corporations to give us less, right? They had to put a lot more in a defined benefit because they had to actually pay for our benefits. With defined contribution, they can give us some, and then they can create this mythological number that is going to compound at, even though the average 401k never compounds at that number. And that's why the average 401k is so small. And then you got the risk of market volatility causing 401ks to turn into 201ks and 101ks, which has happened multiple times. But anyway, so I'm happy that we got the executive order, but I don't know that we're done yet.
Mark Yusko begins by pointing out a fundamental change in the way we view wealth and money. People have little control over their financial future because the world has been run on a fiat currency system for decades, which is governed by governments and central banks. However, investors are now able to own assets in a really decentralized, self-sovereign manner, free from the conventional limitations of centralized finance, thanks to blockchain technology and Bitcoin in particular. Now, let's dive back and hear what he has to say.
Since July 10th, we've basically been at the same place. We've had some highs and some lows, but we're in this, because a roller coaster, right? You go up and then you come down and then you go up, but you end up in the same place. But the enthusiasm for me is coming from, I think we're about to enter the lock-in track. Right, where you lock in, you're going up the big hill, and I think we're going to see that. But I think the difference here is when you have this shift in mindset that, wait, I don't have to be controlled by this fiat control mechanism. That is a very liberating thing, and that's why people who don't spend any time thinking about what is this technology, what is blockchain technology, what is Bitcoin, and a lot of people on the internet say study Bitcoin. Like, that's actually really good advice. I mean, doing the work to understand, you will, I believe, anyone who does any amount of work will have that aha moment. You had it, I had it, everyone we kind of respect in the industry has had it. And we all come about it different ways, but you have it when you see that fundamental understanding of, wait a minute, this is a better way to own things, right? Read, write, own. And now some would say, but wait a minute, Mark, you just said that it goes up and goes down, and if it's a roller coaster, well, what if we go in this big track, between now and October, November, then what? Well, yeah, then I actually think we're due for another bear market. Now, interesting, Saylor this week abolished winter. He said winter is not coming back, that, he basically decreed that the 4-year cycle is over. Yeah, he's a smart guy. I'm taking the other side of that. I've been talking about this really since January, and I said it would be unpopular. Everybody wants the 4-year cycle to be eradicated. Everybody wants to believe that the ETFs and the institutional demand have eradicated the humans are going to human.
The majority of recent policy and regulatory changes pertaining to digital assets, according to Mark Yusko, have been beneficial, transforming what was formerly a barrier into an advantage for the sector. But he also notes that some bills, such as the Clarity Act and the proposed reserve legislation, have either quietly vanished or stalled, possibly because they are stuck in committee. This demonstrates that although there has been progress, the battle is far from over. He also draws attention to the fact that when lawmakers are unable to enact laws through the regular legislative process, process, they occasionally resort to executive orders. Although executive orders have a strong sound, their reach is constrained. For instance, the recent announcement of a digital asset reserve aimed only to identify and hold assets that the government already possesses, not to establish a new reserve. In a similar vein, Trump's recent executive order is expected to expand the scope of retirement savings accounts to include non-traditional investments like real estate, private equity, and cryptocurrency. Lastly, Yusko emphasizes that digital assets such as Bitcoin are not a passing trend or magic internet money. Like the internet, they are a part of a larger technological evolution that the established powers initially oppose but are ultimately powerless to stop. Similar to how the internet upended the media and business sectors, blockchain technology and cryptocurrency are currently upending the established financial order. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and enable notifications for more valuable content, and as always, happy investing.